Supreme King Zark was the ultimate villain from the Yu-Gi-Oh! Art 5 anime, and with some recent support, it's now finally playable as its own deck. So first we're doing the deck profile, and in the second part of the video show you some basic combos the deck can do, to show you what it's capable of. And now without any further ado,
let the reunion begin!
Alright, first off we're playing of course 3 copies of the best card in the main deck, Supreme King Gate Magician. It has 2 pendulum effects and 2 monster effects. You can special summon it from your hand if you have a Supreme King Gate card in your pendulum zone by sending one of the Zark materials from your deck or extra deck to the graveyard. And then, if it's special summoned, it can search the deck for any card that mentions Supreme King Zark, except for a spellcaster monster. Its first pendulum effect prevents Zark from getting banished by your opponent, and it can destroy itself with its second effect. And then you can directly place a Supreme King Gate monster from your deck into your pendulum zone. And the card we'll be placing in the pendulum zone with this effect is Supreme King Gate 0. It has a pendulum skill of 0, which is awesome, and if you control Zark you do not take any damage. Next up, 3 copies of Supreme King Dragon Darkworm and a copy of its counterpart, Lightworm. Darkworm is one of our main starters. It can be special summoned from the graveyard if you do not control any monsters, and if it's normal or special summoned you can search the deck for a Supreme King Gate Pendulum monster. And Lightworm can special summon itself from the pendulum zone if you control Zark and a monster is special summoned, and then it can copy the level and attribute from one pendulum monster to another pendulum monster. And this was just its pendulum effect. It also has an unsummon effect to add a face-up Supreme King Gate or Dragon Pendulum monster from your extra deck to the hand, and then you can immediately synchro or exceed a Supreme King Dragon monster. So we can use this effect to synchro summon during our opponent's turn. And if that's not enough, if one of your face-up Pendulum monsters is destroyed, you can add it back to your hand from the extra deck. So yeah, this card is really good, but we have a lot of ways to search for it, so we don't need more than one. But a card we do absolutely need more than one of is Performapal Skullcrobat Joker. This card searches for any Performapal or Odd Eyes monster or a Magician Pendulum monster when it's normal summoned. So another great starter for the deck. Its pendulum effect restricts you to pendulum summoning Performapal, Magician and Odd Eyes monsters only, which is not a big deal. We don't really want to use this card in our pendulum scale, but if it comes up it practically means we cannot pendulum summon our Supreme King Gate Dragon monsters. Next, a couple of one-offs, Astrograph Sorcerer, Harmonizing Magician, and Performapal Celestial Magician. Astrograph is one of the best pendulum cards ever created. This is the dark counterpart of Supreme King Gate Magician, and is the monster that originally fused the 4-dimension dragons together into Zark. It can special summon onto the field if a card you control is destroyed. Then you can choose any card in your grave, extra deck or banish that was destroyed this turn and then add another copy of that card from your deck to your hands. It also has an effect to summon Zark, but we'll never use that because we have another card that can do that way more efficiently. Harmonizing Magician can special summon one Magician Pendulum monster from your deck in defense, if it is pendulum summoned from the hand, but its effects are negated and it gets banished when it leaves the field. And because Harmonizing is a tuner, it allows us to go into some synchro plays. One of the cards we can summon with her effect is Performapal Celestial Magician. It has different effects based on what monsters you control when it's summoned. If you control a fusion, it can attack directly. Synchro, your opponent cannot activate monster effects for the rest of the turn. With an Xyz, its attack is doubled. And with Pendulum you can search for a Pendulum monster during your end phase. And then for our last monster, Odd Eyes Arc Pendulum Dragon. We play this card just as a fusion material to summon out Zark. So that's it for the monsters, now onto the spells and traps. We have 3 Dragon Shrine and 1 Foolish Burial. We can use these to send our Darkworm from the deck to the graveyard, so we can special summon it with its effect. This is very nice because we can preserve our normal summon. Next up, 3 Wings of Light. This is a quick play spell that can search our Supreme King Dragons or Supreme King Gate Pendulum monsters. If you control Zark, you can special summon it instead. And then the last ones, 1 Pendulum Evolution and Soul of the Supreme Celestial King. Pendulum Evolution is a continuous spell that allows Zark to attack every monster your opponent controls this turn. It can also shuffle any Pendulum monster from your hand into the deck, to grab a 2500 attack Pendulum monster like Supreme King Gate Magician or Astrograph Sorcerer. And it also allows you to Pendulum Summon again this turn if you special summon a face down Pendulum monster from your extra deck this turn. And then Soul of the Supreme Celestial King, one of the best support cards for this deck. This trap allows us to summon Zark during our opponent's turn by tributing a 2500 attack Spellcaster Pendulum monster and by banishing the fusion materials from our hand, deck, extra deck and graveyard. Insane. But you have to use specific materials, otherwise its effects are negated. So we can summon Zark during our opponent's turn, which cannot be targeted and destroyed by card effects, and on summon it nukes the opponent's entire field. Absolutely crazy. That with his high 4000 attack points makes it an insane boss monster, and it can be pretty difficult to deal with. So that's it for the archetype cards of the main deck. Up until now we're playing 24 cards. So that means we have at least 16 slots left for hand traps and other generic staples. I'm currently using 3 crossout designators and 1 called by the grave to stop our opponent's hand traps. This deck can play through some interruptions, but we want to make sure that some key searches go through as consistently as possible. And then for the hand traps, 3 Infinite Impermanence, triple Veiler, triple Ash Blossom, 2 Nibiru and 1 Droll and Logbird, mainly as a crossout target. But keep in mind you should always adjust these hand traps and generic staples based on your local environment. Now for the extra deck, we have of course Zark, the main boss monster of the deck, which cannot be targeted or destroyed by card effects and nukes the opponent's entire field when it's summoned. And the fusion materials we have to make Zark are Starving Venom Fusion Dragon, Clearwing Synchro Dragon, Odd Eyes Rebellion Xyz Dragon, together with the Odd Eyes Arc Pendulum Dragon in the main deck. We cannot summon Starving Venom or Clearwing, these are just here as fusion materials. We can technically summon Odd Eyes Rebellion Xyz Dragon by overlaying 2 level 7s, but that very rarely comes up. It can destroy 2 of our opponent's monsters with 3000 attack or less by detaching a material. But we have a far better rank 7 option to summon, which is Odd Eyes Absolute Dragon. If this Xyz summoned card is sent to the graveyard, you can summon an Odd Eyes monster straight from your extra deck. This is really easy, we just link it away. So we can summon our Odd Eyes Vortex Dragon. This card is amazing, it can negate the activation of a spell or trap card or a monster effect by shuffling a face-up Pendulum monster from your extra deck back in the deck. And when it's summoned, it can bounce an attack position monster back to the hand. So definitely one of the best cards in the extra deck. And then Supreme King Dragon Clearwing can, when it's synchro summoned, destroy all our opponent's face-up monsters. So we synchro into this monster during our opponent's turn, so we can nuke the field once with Zark, and then later all their monsters again with Clearwing. Really nice. And I'll show you how to do this in the second part of the video. Next we have a lot of links. 2 Beyond the Pendulum and 1 Exceed the Pendulum. Beyond the Pendulum can search a deck for any Pendulum monster, but you have to immediately Pendulum summon afterwards, otherwise all your card effects are negated for the rest of the turn. And if 2 monsters with different levels are Pendulum summoned at the same time to Beyond's arrows, it can pop 2 cards on the field. Absolutely awesome. Exceed the Pendulum can add a face-up Pendulum monster in your extra deck back to the hand if she's link summoned, and her quick effect lets you reborn a Pendulum monster from the graveyard during the main phase, with its level between your Pendulum scales. Next, the last couple of links, Selene, Apollousa, and access code Talker. Selene is really good in the deck to reborn a spellcaster monster from the graveyard. Apollousa, I really don't like playing this card, but it's just too good not to play in this deck. We summon a lot of monsters and use their effects, and this is just one of the most efficient ways to convert those bodies we don't really need anymore into monster negates. And access code is also really easy to make to break our opponent's board and swing in for huge damage. Up until now we have 13 extra deck cards. I consider the last 2 cards as flex spots. The cards I'm currently using are Adamancipator Dragite and Psychic and Punisher. Dragite can negate the activation of a spell or trap card if you have a water monster in your graveyard, and the Odd Eyes Absolute Dragon is a water monster, so that works out. and Psychic and Punisher becomes unaffected by the activated effects if your life points are lower than your opponent's. It can also once per turn banish one of your cards and one of your opponent's cards by paying 1,000. Harmonizing Magician makes it really easy to go into generic level 8 and 11 synchros in this deck, so you can definitely play around what you want in these slots. And that's it for the extra deck. Before getting into the combos, I first want to quickly go over some of the cards we are not playing, which are Odd Eyes Archray Dragon and Zark Synchro Universe. I could not figure out why I should play these over some other extra deck options. To summon Archray, we have to tribute our Zark. So you would expect something amazing if the summoning requirement of a card is to tribute your ultimate boss monster for it. And what you get out of that is a search for a pendulum monster, and you have to put it into your pendulum scale. Why would you tribute your ultimate boss monster that's untargetable and indestructible by card effects just to get a limited search, while we already have enough ways to search pretty much any monster in the deck? I think I only used it once or twice playing this deck the last couple of weeks, so I don't think it deserves an extra deck slot. And Synchro Universe is arguably even worse. This card can summon up to 2 Supreme King Dragon monsters from the deck, grave and extra deck in defense if it inflicts battle damage, or destroys an opponent's monster by battle. And that's it for a level 12 Synchro? I could not figure out a way to make these cards do something really good very consistently to justify a slot in the extra deck for it. I really want to play these cards, but I couldn't find a reason to play these, unfortunately. And that's it for the deck profile. Now let's see what this deck can do. Okay, the first combo requires either Dragon Shrine or Foolish Burial and one monster that can be normal summoned. We use Effect Failure in this case because it does not have any additional benefits. We start by activating Foolish Burial and send our Darkroom to the graveyard. And then we use its effect to special summon it to the field, and its effect adds our Gate Magician to our hand. And then we place it in the Pendulum Zone and use its effect to destroy itself. And this allows us to place Gate 0 directly in the Pendulum Scale. Next, we normal summon our Effect Failure and link these off to go into Beyond the Pendulum. Then Beyond's effect pay 1200 life points and we grab our Light Worm and place it directly in the Pendulum Scale. Next we Pendulum summon these back to the field. Then, because Gate Magician is special summoned, we can add the Celestial King trap card from our deck to our hand and set it onto the field. So this is our end board and it doesn't look very impressive, but we can double board wipe the opponent's field with this. At any point during the opponent's turn we can activate our trap card, tribute our Supreme King Gate Magician and banish the fusion materials to summon out Zark. And if Zark is summoned, it destroys every card the opponent controls. And we can do it again if a monster is special summoned while we control Zark. We can special summon our Light Worm from the Pendulum Scale, then copy the attribute from Dark Worm and synchro into Supreme King Dragon Clearwing. And Clearwing destroys all face-up monsters the opponent controls. So a 1.5 card combo equals a double board wipe during the opponent's turn. So this is combo number 1, now let's swing into combo number 2. Combo number 2 is Foolish Burial, but instead of Failure we have a Performapal Skullcrabat Joker. So we start off the exact same way, send Darkroom to the graveyard, special summon it from the grave, search Gate Magician and set it in the scale, destroy it and place the Gate 0 in the Pendulum Zone. Next we normal summon the Skullcrabat Joker and search for Harmonizing Magician. Then we link these two into Beyond the Pendulum and search for Lightworm and set it in the scale. And then we Pendulum summon Darkworm, Gate Magician and Harmonizing Magician. Now Gate Magician's effect activates as Chainlink 1 and Harmonizing Magician as Chainlink 2. Harmonizing special summons another Gate Magician from the deck, and Gate Magician searches for the trap card. Then we overlay our level 7s for Odd Eyes Absolute Dragon, and link it away with our Beyond the Pendulum to summon Selene. Next, Absolute Dragon's effect activates in the graveyard. It special summons the Odd Eyes Vortex Dragon straight from the deck. And Celine gains 3 counters because there are 3 spells on the field and in the graveyard. Then we remove those counters to reborn our Gate Magician. Now we don't need Celine anymore, so we link her and Harmonizing away for a link to Material Apollousa. So now we have the exact same field as before, backed up with an Omni Negate with Vortex Dragon and 2 Monster Negates with Apollousa. And that's it pretty much. Let me know your thoughts about this deck in the comments and consider subscribing if you don't want to miss out on any future videos. It really helps out. And that's it. I see you later.